I'm Mike Vardy.
Meal planning is important because it prevents us from being a disappointed wreck when dinner time comes around and we have no clue what to make, or even if we have the ingredients to make the meal. It's a time and a money saver, but most importantly, it frees up valuable brain space. Creating a meal plan prepares us for the week to come and gives us peace of mind that we're organized and can feed ourselves and our family. That's why I do it, and that's why Plan to Eat helps me do it. Your subscription includes access to the Plan to Eat website and fully featured mobile apps on iOS and Android. And Plan to Eat gives you the tools to clip and organize recipes from any website, the ones your family loves and that fit your dietary preferences and needs. And you can create a meal plan around your schedule. Then what happens is the Plan to Eat software automatically creates an organized shopping list based on your plan. So sign up for your free trial at plantoeat.com/timecrafting. That's plantoeat.com/timecrafting. The coupon will be automatically applied to your account and can be used when you're ready to subscribe. It's valid for new customers only. Give Plan to Eat a try today.
And this is the Productivityist podcast. Welcome to the podcast, the Productivityist podcast. I'm Mike Vardy. And this week on the show, I have a mindful conversation with Patrick Rhone. Patrick Rhone has been on the show before. He is the author of Mindfulness for Mere Mortals and the purveyor of the website, patrickrhone.com. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing the introduction because we just dived into a really cool conversation that I hope you'll enjoy. So here he is, Patrick Rhone, talking mindfully and about a whole bunch of things. Here on the Productivityist podcast. Enjoy. So, how have you been?
Wow. Okay. That's a complicated question. So here's the thing. When you're head down into a project for a significant period of time, when you finally get the project finished, and we'll talk about finishing a project, by the way, in a sec. But once you get the project finished, and you've shirked so many other projects and responsibilities for the sake of this one for so long, your head comes up out of it, and suddenly it's like, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with myself if I'm not working on this thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so I think it takes a little while. I think that's the one thing we don't plan for, especially when it comes to big projects, that we don't plan for providing the period in between where you're a little bit lost.
Yeah.
And where you need to kind of get your normal rhythm back.
Yeah, you almost need like a recovery period, or just a re-indoctrination of sorts. Like you're coming, it's like when when astronauts go to space and they come back to Earth, and I mean,
they can't walk.
I'm being reductive, but it's funny. I'm about to head into that phase myself, where I'm working on a deep project, possibly. Now, the interesting thing is there's going to be two deep projects that I'm going to basically have to alternate between, which might be even more. I think that might be easier, to be honest, because it's not like digging I'll be digging deep into both, but I've got them structured in a way that allows me to say, okay, on this day I work on this, on this day I work on this kind of thing, which is how I've been practicing with my reading. My reading workflow has been very much on this day I read this book, and on this day I read this book, which has kind of helped me for this next phase of creation. But yeah, I could. It's like even after travel, right? Like, I'm going on a trip as we're recording this. I leave for a trip next Tuesday, and I'm gone from the 16th of February until the 1st of March.
Oh wow!
And I'm traveling from the West Coast. Nice. Yeah, the trip is West Coast to East Coast, back to West Coast, up north, then home.
All in Canada?
No, it's it's a quick stop in LA, like an overnight, just because of the way the flights worked out. I don't want to leave first thing in the morning, so I'm overnighting in LA. Then I fly from LA to Washington, D.C. to attend the DAD Summit. And then from there, I take the Bolt bus to New Jersey, to spend a couple days in Jersey. And then I fly from Jersey to Vancouver, and then my family meets me in Vancouver, and we fly up to Whitehorse, which is in the Yukon, because there's a winter festival up there.
Jeepers.
Yeah, I think I have a stop in Minneapolis along the way, like a layover, like a quick stop layover in Minneapolis, because it's Delta, so Delta from Liberty to, but I've kind of set up myself so that I can do that travel with all my, my fundamental stuff that needs to be done in advance. I tend to do that. But when you're finished traveling, it's like my wife's even said this. She says, you need like 3 or 4 days just to not do anything.
And just to kind of re-enter back into the real world.
Yeah, jet lag aside. That's not going to be the issue. It's going to be okay, now what? Especially since I've been prepping for, all the stuff I've been prepping for is all the fundamental stuff. While I'm traveling, I'll be working on my book and working on the now year stuff. And then when I get back, then it's family time. Then it's, so it becomes this, there'll be no coaching calls during that time. So it's I definitely, so the project you just finished is the big book, right? Isn't it?
No.
Oh, that's not done yet.
No, the big book is what got pushed aside for this.
Right.
No,
this is the house thing then, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a hilarious thing, right? Like, this isn't like some, big, money-making endeavor. This isn't something that's going to, well, I suppose in a sense it is, but, this isn't something that's going to be a hallmark of my career or really put me on the map as a writer. This isn't like any of that stuff. This is rehabbing a house.
It's completely off not off the grid, but it's off.
It's off what, I think people who know me, who know you, who know the circles we travel in, when we talk about big projects, we're talking about books or conferences or this, that, and the other. And, here I am with this kind of real physical labor sort of thing.
Right.
So do you know the story behind the house?
I've seen bits of, I've seen you talk about, it's been a while since we've talked, but I've seen I've seen your updates on social media. You basically went from a house that needed a ton of work. It was a new house you just purchased, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, we actually purchased it about 4 years ago. Right. And got kind of the big rocks. Yep. Out of the way first, the big rocks in the house being the mechanicals, electrical, and plumbing, right? So the HVAC and all that stuff, and then kind of lost momentum after that, for a variety of reasons. Not the least of which is that rehabbing houses and building stuff and handyman sort of stuff is just not my expertise. It's not anything.
I hear you there.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I hear you there.
And not knowing kind of how to proceed or who to hire or what, and whether or not we could afford hiring anyone or whatever. It just all kind of stopped me in my tracks. Fast forward to around end of September, beginning of October, and a good friend of ours who actually did the plumbing work on the house because he's a plumber said, "Hey, my brother Kerry is kind of a handyman general contractor, and he's in between jobs right now. Now, in this area, finding a good handyman or contractor is like finding a vein of gold. Yeah, right. They just there are plenty of them. They're just always so busy, and that was part of the issue as well. And so I said, oh yeah, sure, let me talk to him, And so Kerry came over and took a look, and he's like, yeah, we could totally do this together, especially if it's you and me, and if you're kind of working alongside, and I can show you how to do some stuff, and you'll learn something, and hey, I'll get, I'll have some business here where I'm in this weird down period. And it was a win-win for everybody. And so basically that set up suddenly at the end of September, unplanned as part of my kind of year, that this was going to be my full-time job for at least the next 3 to 4 months. And that's exactly what happened. I literally was working 8 to 10 hours a day, every day, including weekends, on this. And we took a house that we purchased for $7,200.
Sheesh.
And all told, probably put at the, we haven't crunched the final numbers, but I'm guessing 45 to 50,000 into it. And, its sitting value right now is about 120,000.
Wow.
And we're not going to sell it. We're going to own it, because everyone needs 3 houses, I suppose. And don't even get me started on the second one. So we're gonna we've rented it out. We've got a lovely young lady who's a daughter of a longtime friend of ours staying there, and she's got a roommate with her, and they've got a fantastic bargain on a house that they can rent that's close to a hospital, because she's planning on studying to become a nurse, and she's hoping to get her residency at that hospital that literally is a block away. And so it's a win-win for everybody, incredibly rewarding. Certainly something that now I won't be so, afraid of. And in fact, I kind of miss it in a way. There's something very nice about working on something that tangible.
Mm-hmm. Like a physical thing as opposed to digital. Yeah. Because even when you're writing a book, you'll get a print copy of it, and that'll be that's probably the next phase of, but to build something. I've been thinking, I've been reading about Nathan Barry and how he took up woodworking. That was one thing that I've been thinking about doing something like that. Nathan Waldman's tiny house. I mean, even though we have taken over the basement in our house and I have an office down here, I mean, every time my mother-in-law comes to visit, one of the kids gets displaced a little bit, right? Because we only have a total of 4 rooms that people could sleep in, 3 rooms, plus my office. So I've always kind of still hinted to Anne that we should maybe look at still building an outdoor office for me, or someplace where we could, even an outdoor, sleeping area for somebody if they wanted to come by, something like that.
Yeah.
And she's still very hesitant about that, but I keep thinking about it because we have this corner of our lot. We don't have a big lot. We have this corner of our lot that basically sits unused. And we could build under 100 square feet. We don't need a permit to do that. And just build something there that's nice and tiny. And if you build a loft in it, then you could have a place for somebody to sleep if you wanted to. But that could be my office. Or, that kind of thing, it's still something that I've wanted to work on, with someone, obviously with somebody experienced. But you always hear this, and I guess this is probably something we can discuss, is the whole trading, I don't mow my lawn as much as I used to, because somebody else who really likes mowing lawns will do it for me instead, and I can write during that time. But there is something, I think, to be said for picking and choosing those spots, especially when it comes to something that is like what you just did. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, no, I completely agree. And what's hilarious about what you're saying is that, now that I'm in this period where I don't have this sort of thing to work on, I've actually been kind of thinking through the same thing. That space back there would make a lovely little writing cottage. Yep. And let's see, and literally. So now that I have the experience and I kind of know how to build these things and to build them properly, and kind of know how easy and how difficult it is, but I at least kind of know the pieces of it and kind of know the cost. I sit back and think to myself, yep, we could do it like this, and I could do that, and I could save money this way, and wow, you could do this, and I pretty much have put this thing together in my mind for about $1,000. Mm-hmm. Yep. Probably a little bit over that, probably about 2,000 when it was all said and done. We always underestimate these things, but because you never just stop at you don't stop at just framing out the shed. No, you're now you're like, I need some bookshelves. Right. Oh yeah, no, I would want, I could tell you right now, I would want an entire wall of bookshelves. Just an entire wall. I'd go with a standing desk built right in. A fold away, so you could fold it down if you wanted to. I would go with, I have the perfect, I have the ideal one in my head, you know, and I've always been looking for it. And it's just a matter of, you know, and there's lots of places where you can get like reclaimed windows and things like that. But then you know, the concern is, well, does it get too cold? Do you want to use for, you know, like, so you get, I mean, but it's something that's been in my head for a while and it hasn't gone away. Even after we did the renovations, my wife's like, finally, he's going to be happy with his office. I do like my office. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, you know,
she should have known better.
She should have known better. She should have known better. She's like, oh man, unless she does something with that corner while I'm traveling, I'm still going to come back and see it every single, you know. And then there's other things like we were at yesterday. You know, we're recording this on like early February. Yesterday was a holiday in British Columbia called Family Day, and they have it across Canada. Ours just happens to be the second week of February, where everywhere else in Canada is the third week of February, which is just weird. But we went to out to Sydney, which is a place that's close to where the ferry drops people off as they're coming from the mainland. It's a very sleepy town, a lot of retirees, and you know, it's near where the airport is, and there was this like kind of trade show of sorts to highlight what Sydney has to offer. And there's the Victoria Flying Club. Now, the other day. And again, I think this is interesting because I want to talk a bit about your book too, the Mindfulness for Mere Mortals, because I just finished reading it as well. But I've been thinking about like a friend of mine who I used to work for. He flies. He's a licensed pilot. And this past weekend, he said, "I want to fly to Nanaimo for breakfast. Anyone who wants to pitch in $5 or $10 for gas, we'll do it and we'll come back." And I missed, like, you know me, I'm not a morning person, so I totally missed the cut. But it got me thinking, that's pretty awesome that you could fly to Nanaimo, like land at the airport, go to breakfast, and then get back in your plane. Because it's only about an hour and a half drive, but to fly there it'd be like 20 minutes, right? Yeah. So I thought, you know, I've been thinking of, and it's something I have flown a plane before with him I've been up in his plane before, and with my daughter, this before Colton was born, and my wife were in the back, and he actually gave me the stick for a while, and I got to fly the plane. It was pretty cool. And I thought, you know, I've thought about that before. Now keep in mind, learning to fly is not cheap. No. But I was at this trade show, and we're walking around, and lo and behold, who's got a booth there or a table there but the Victoria Flying Club. And I thought, you know, I'm going to pick up their information now so I have it. Because it's going to cost, I think it costs like $5,000 for the full, which is not a lot. Like, it's a lot of money when
it's not unattainable.
It's not unattainable. Right. And you get trained in the Cessna and all that stuff. And then, you know, and it's funny because my wife's like, better make sure our life insurance will, you know, you avoid our life insurance if you start to fly a plane. I'm like, I don't know. We'll have to look into that. But anyway, it's just like those thoughts come to mind, and they fall completely outside the realm of what you and I like what we talk about online, like you saying about building, you know, and I mean, the same thing with the working out I've been doing, the Whole30, which Courtney Carver turned me on to. Yeah. I'm on day 22 now.
You guys are crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm on day 22. No, but seriously, I got a physical done, and the doctor, he accidentally told me how much, it was last week I got a physical done, and I was halfway through the program, and he told me, he goes, "Oh, you weigh 183 pounds. When I started, I weighed 198. I lost 15 pounds in basically 15 days. Now, again, I went from like beer, barbecue, soda pop, all that stuff to like just whole, like no legumes, no dairy, no gluten, no nothing, and no processed foods. And that's how much weight I lost. And now I'm doing this program for the Dad Summit. They call it the Smarty Pants Vitamins is doing it with a coach I know in Vancouver. And I'm on day 4 of that today. And I'm seeing some results. So, but I don't normally, I mean, I haven't tweeted much about it. I've Facebooked privately about it. But I think you get to a point where the stuff that you do that's the big thing, like the thing you're known for, it's nice to pepper it with the stuff that you're not really known for.
Wow. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll get to the
Sure, yeah, but I think it relates to mindfulness for sure. But anyway.
Well, but here's something I've been trying to I've been wrestling around in my head with kind of how to put out there and where it belongs. But this idea that sometimes you need to build things and do things kind of offline and private that no one's going to see.
Yep.
don't just like, so, boy, this is going to get out there. People are going to go looking for it. But like, so I've been like writing this newsletter
Mm-hmm.
that nobody knows
I'm
about
going to say, I haven't seen a newsletter.
because it's got no subscribers, right? I'm doing it just to see kind of how, like, if I were to make this a regular part of my life, how would this look? What would I do with it? And the reason I haven't put it out there is because it keeps being like other people's newsletters, and I don't necessarily want that, right?
Right.
But there's so many great newsletters that I read on a regular basis and I admire, and they can't help but kind of seep into my consciousness. And so when I go to build these things,
Name some
yeah.
for some people who are listening. Like, name some.
Okay. So Austin Kleon's newsletter, where he sends out every Friday, he sends out 10.
I subscribe to that one too.
Sort of links, and that's great. God, what's his name? Matthias. Geez, I'm going to screw up the poor guy's name. But what I really like about his newsletter, hold on, I'm looking it up in the mail app. But what I really like about his newsletter, it's Matthias Jacobson, and the name of his newsletter is Think Clearly. And what I love about his newsletter is it's all handwritten and drawn.
Oh, cool.
So basically, he takes a page of a large Moleskine and just does one short thing on there and scans it in and sends that out.
That's cool.
And
That's
it's
different.
always just wonderful. It's just this wonderful dose of greatness, every week. Garrick van Buren's Expand newsletter, which is a subscription newsletter, but the really neat thing is Garrick tweets regular kind of ideas out on Twitter, and based upon whatever idea for the week gets the most retweets and likes and favorites and whatever else, hearts, whatever we're calling it these days, he counts all those up, and whichever one gets the most, he expands on that topic. So, it's kind of just a general 140 character idea, but he then goes on to write 3 or 4 or 5 paragraphs about.
I imagine James Shelley is probably on your list too.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. James Shelley's, the I can never pronounce it right, the Caesura letters.
Yeah.
Has long been, at least when it was daily, it was every day, every morning, I'd pretty much start my day with it. But I got to warn people about him because he's so
deep,
smart and deep and intellectual, right?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the stuff he writes about is like stuff from like the Roman philosophers and things like that. But
it's interesting because before Ryan Holiday started writing and Tim Ferriss started writing about this stuff, James was writing about it.
Yeah, James was writing about
it years ago.
Years before Tim Ferriss got on the whole
Seneca and all that stuff, and
Marcus Aurelius and such. James Shelley was writing about that stuff years and years ago. So yeah, he's great. So my point being is this: I've been writing one. I've now written several. I've never sent them. No one has subscribed to it. You can go subscribe to it if you can find it, but you could probably take some guesses.
Yeah.
But, as to what service and, stick my name at the end of it, you'll find it and you'll subscribe. But I'm not pressing send on anything. And I guess I want to wrap back around to my point, which is I do it to experiment.
Yeah.
Just to play around with the idea of like, if I did this, what would it look like? Maybe if I stumble upon something, yeah, this feels good. This feels right. Oh yeah. Okay. There could be a thing here. Then I'll like announce it and send it out and give it a shot or whatever. But you need that time to just play without an audience, to just work stuff out, to just build stuff for the sake of building it, for the sake of practice, for the sake of just saying, I don't know what this looks like. I think we're so quick in this world to launch and to share and to ship and to, get it out there that oftentimes we put things out there that are half-baked, or we put things out there that that could have been better if we had just allowed some time to play.
Yeah, we're quantity over quality in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so...
It's funny. Have you read Adam Grant's new book, Originals, yet?
No.
You should. There's a lot of what you touched on there, like the idea of, I mean, as soon as you mentioned Matthias's newsletter, I'm like, oh, that's totally what Adam Grant would talk about in Originals. I mean, if you've read Give and Take, right? I've not read it, but I know Cal Newport's talked about Adam Grant a number of times, and I know you like Cal's work too. So
yeah, no, I haven't. I'm sorry to say
it's brand new. It's only come out. I just read it. That's one of the things I've really been focusing on doing. It's funny. I was talking to my daughter about this as we were walking to school today, and we were just talking about. And I've written about this too, and even spoken on my Patreon edition of the podcast about the idea that, like, TV. I mean, once football season ended, and even before that, I was whittling my TV time down to under 10 hours a week. And I mean, that to me was a big deal, because there were times where I was watching more of it because it was there and it was on. Like, I would watch pro wrestling and stuff like that. And then now right. I have it if I ever want to watch it, I can. But I've been more deliberate about that. And I've been reading a lot. I have, as of this recording, I have read 10 books since the middle of January.
Gosh, I'm so jealous.
But it's because I had. But the only way you can do that, though, and this is something that people are like, well, how do you find time? Like, you let go of other things. You say
you make the time.
You make the time. You say, okay, you know what? I am going to, and you set up barriers or parameters that kind of push you in that direction. So, like, for example, in your book, you talk about the idea of meditations, mindfulness for mere mortals, when you talk about meditation. Yes. And I've been using Headspace for about the past 6 days straight. I've used it off and on before, but lately I've been doing it because meditation is part of this program I'm doing. And I have gotten in the first 4 days, I felt so much better. I felt great after every single time. But on the fourth day, and I'm using Headspace, so it's guided, he says, let your mind wander. And my brain's like, got nothing to wander to. Like, the brain is literally starting to train itself to focus on the moment, on the breath, on that stuff. And I think one of the things that people, for me, I think that idea of capturing stuff as it comes to you, not when you're in meditative state, but when you're not in a meditative state, is so critical, so that you can actually be mindful and meditate. Because I can sit, and it's the same thing with reading. I can sit and meditate now, and if something comes to mind, it's something I've already recorded somewhere, in all likelihood. Like the idea in your book, you talk about the Facebook RSVP. That's already been recorded somewhere. Like, that's already down in Todoist or Asana or wherever the hell you're going to put it. Yeah. And
that was the whole point.
Sure.
I mean, of GTD. I mean, at its very basis, the idea was to clear your head of all this stuff so that your head has the time, the room to breathe, as it were. Yep.
And so for reading, I just said, I want to read more. Okay, how do I make that happen? Well, I'm going to read. I know I get bored easily. By one book. So how do I do it? Well, what if I read alternating books on given days? Okay. My wife's like, you should read some fiction. I'm like, I'm not ready for fiction yet. I don't really like, I mean, I enjoy reading fiction, but that was the thing, like, and she's the opposite of me. She says, I can't read nonfiction because she went to university and that's all she read for a long period of time was nonfiction.
My wife is the same way. She reads to escape. And so she doesn't read to learn. She reads to escape.
And I read to learn. So I said, well, if I have two alternating books, so what I've done is I have in Todoist, I'll put in my library, my paper library now has separated books I've read, books I haven't. And so I will have a book that's actively being read, which will have a bookmark in it. But the one that's next on the list, I just slightly slide out from the shelf. That's the one I know I'm going to read next. And I actually have in my task app, and people are going to say that sounds really rigid, but I say read, like right now I'm reading Quiet by Susan Cain. And I just started reading You Are Not a Gadget by Jacob Lanier. So
both great. Yeah. Both fantastic.
So I'm halfway through Quiet. I just finished reading Chris Guillebeau's new book, Born for This. So the next one on the list was Jacob. And I actually have a task called Read Jacob. And I have it, reading is the mode that I need to be in to do it. And I want to read at least for 25 minutes per night or per session, I guess, on this. But the other thing I have is I have an Audible book that is constantly going in the background. So that's the thing that I will read during dish time or whatever, when I'm walking to pick up the kids or when I'm walking back from picking up the kids. So I am essentially reading 3 books at a time, but they're segmented out in a way that makes them digestible. And, and on Audible, I can bookmark things. Like the Audible app has a thing where you can say, oh, I really like that point. You hit the bookmark button. Of course, in paper books, I dog ear like crazy. And, if I'm reading, I was reading your book, I highlight it. Right. So, I mean, I think that if you set up parameters and you make a concerted effort, like your intentions are, I want to read more, and then you carve out ways to pay attention to that, then you don't have to think about it as much. It just happens. Like my goal was to read 50 books this year. I've read 10 already.
Right.
So, I mean, if I keep up this pace, and we're basically the second week of February. If I keep up this pace, I'm going to hit close to 100 books.
Yeah. Well, but here's another thing about that I think, people don't think about. Think about how many times you're in a checkout line. You got the person with 100 groceries ahead of you. And maybe 4 or 5 of those people, and you're going to be standing there a while, and you pull out your phone and you start checking the Facebook or the Twitter or the what have you.
Other people's stuff. It's funny. So Mindfulness for Mere Mortals is a living book. It's a living guide. In other words, it's not done yet. The thing that you buy is like a portion of what it's going to eventually be. What you're buying now is you're buying the kind of the first third of it, and I plan on releasing updates as I write more stuff. And I've written more stuff, and a new update will, knocking on wood, come out towards the end of this week. But one of the things that I'm writing about is, the title of the next chapter is, "Are you down with OPP?" Other people's problems, right? Because that's really what it comes down to, right? We want to go and read about other people's problems, whether that be, the person who's having a really bad day at work, or the person who's having a hard time with their kids, or the people that are dying in wars on the other side of the world, or the politicians who can't stop repeating the same phrase over and over again. These are all other people's problems that we're so attracted to because it allows us to avoid our own. But I digress. My a local guy I follow on Twitter, he's a friend, Kevin D. Hendricks, actually wrote a book called 137 Books in 1 Year, How to Fall in Love with Reading. And it's chock full of just wonderful advice, kind of a lot of it head slapping, no duh sort of stuff, but still head slapping, no duh sort of stuff that you're not doing, right? Mm-hmm.
And not Mike, but you and the general public, that we generally don't do. One of the things he said was, well, instead of taking my phone with me everywhere, I replaced it with a book.
Yep.
Whatever book I was reading. And that's why I tended to read a lot of like trade paperbacks, because in the winter I could stick it in my coat pocket and it would fit, and I could, if I'm in the grocery line, I'd take out my book and start reading. If I was, at the car wash, while they're washing my car, I'd take in my book and start reading. I'd go to the bathroom, my book would come with me. I would, the book literally came with me everywhere, the same way we do with our phones.
Yep.
How did I read 137 books in a year? Anytime I had the chance to read, I read. It's really as simple as that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I love that. That's kind of the main takeaway. Replace your smartphone with a good book. Because if you're probably doing that with your phone already. You may not even be conscious of, the amount of time you're spending there. But the same thing is true with meditation, right?
Yeah.
This is not something that you necessarily have to carve out a half hour, 20 minutes, an hour of your day.
No.
This isn't a yoga class that you're going to have to go to when it's happening. And, all those things are great. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying that, once again, are you stuck in a grocery line? Then you have 2 minutes to meditate.
Yeah.
And that's, 2 minutes can be highly beneficial, especially in situations where you're normally stressed or anxious or impatient. 2 minutes can take all that and throw it all away.
I think that's an excellent place to end. Patrick, where can people find you and your book online?
Oh, wow. So patrickrhone.com is the place to find me best, I suppose, these days. If you really want to get to everything, you can try patrickrhone.net, but you really don't want to do that. You just want to come to patrickrhone.com. You just want to look along the bottom there. I've got some useful things like a link to my books, a link to the Dash Plus system you may have heard a little bit about here and there. Go check it out. What I'm doing right now. I mean, it's all there. You just got to go and check it out.
Thanks again for joining me, Patrick. This has been awesome.
Oh, Mike, always a pleasure, and any time. Because, well, I have nothing else to do. I can't figure it out. Bye.
Big thanks to Patrick Rhone for joining me on the show this week. I'd like to hear your feedback on the show. Please leave ratings and reviews in iTunes. I'd love to hear what we're doing right, what we can improve upon, and take it from there. That's it for this week's episode. I'll be back next week with a whole brand spanking new episode. Until then, I'm Mike Vardy, the host of the Productivityist podcast, founder of Productivityist and productivity strategist, reminding you to stop guessing and start going.